Throughout the entire period, the daytime rules of my life continued as before. I was independent. I supported myself to the extent of my lunches, at any rate, and of keeping up an empty apartment, gas and phone bills at a minimum. Came to my own decisions, made my choices. The nighttime rules decreed that I was helpless, dependent, totally taken care of. No decisions were expected of me. I had no responsibilities. I had no choice. I loved it. 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 From the minute I closed his front door behind me, there was nothing more for me to do. I was there to be done to. Someone else had taken control of my life, down to the last detail. If control was out of my hands, I, in turn, was allowed to be out of control. For weeks on end, I was flooded by an overwhelming sense of relief at being unburdened of adulthood. "Would you let me blindfold you?" had been the first and last question of any importance asked of me. From then on, nothing was ever again a matter of my assent or protest, though once or twice my qualms became part of the process to make my addiction clear to me, of my weighing priorities or alternatives, practical, intellectual, moral, of considering consequences. There was only the voluptuous luxury of being a bystander to one's own life, an absolute relinquishing of individuality, an abandoned reveling in the abdication of selfhood. I wake up not feeling right. It isn't any better after breakfast, and by 11 o'clock it is worse. By lunchtime I feel thoroughly chilled. I order a cardboard container of chicken soup to eat at my desk, but the first spoonful is like rancid oil on my tongue, and I cannot bring myself to take another one. By 3 in the afternoon, I decide this isn't a passing discomfort. I tell the receptionist I am ill and go home, to my apartment. I barely manage to push the door shut behind me. A stagnant smell closes in on me. The apartment is stifling hot. Dust particles dance before locked windows, the mirror above the fireplace iridescent in the vicious glare. I crawl into the bed, shivering uncontrollably, but unable to get under the covers. I tug at the bedspread beneath me and finally grab hold of a loose end, which I pull over my shoulders. The sun shines directly onto my face, which feels as if about to burst into flames. As soon as I lift my head off the pillow in an effort to get up and draw the shades, I become too dizzy to keep my eyes open. The telephone wakes me from a nightmare that has me consumed by hordes of outsized fire ants. I push off the bedspread and bring the receiver to my ear without opening my eyes. "What's wrong?" he says. "I must be coming down with something," I mutter, feeling as cold now as if sprawled on ice instead of no iron cotton polyester. "I'll be right over," he says. The phone clicks, then hums. "Don't," I say, and put the hand that holds the receiver onto my chest. I am really sick, I think, visualizing the word through the gyroscope inside my forehead. I'm never sick, I think, and in the middle of summer, that's the most ridiculous, This time I am awakened by the doorbell. I do not move. It rings in staccato bursts again and again. Finally, the noise seems worse than getting up. I make it to the door without once opening my eyes. While I keep saying, "I want to stay here," he picks me up, kicks the door shut behind him, and carries me to the elevator. "I can't stand people when I'm sick. I hate to have them around," I mumble into his neck. "I have to be sick in my own bed," I finally say in as loud a voice as I can muster. Not that sick, he says, holding me propped upright in the elevator. I am too dizzy to answer. He half carries, half drags me to the waiting cab. There is a mess of arms and legs, and another trip to another elevator, and then I'm in the bed I know better than my own by now, undressed this time, and one of his shirts on me. Through a haze, he says, I'm going out to buy a thermometer. Cold glass in my mouth after a while, and then not, and then his voice on the phone. A hand shakes my shoulder. This is a friend of mine, still makes house calls. A pink-cheeked man looms above me, beaming square, oil-slicked teeth that rearrange themselves incessantly and with terrifying speed. A tongue depressor in my mouth, someone probing. Later, his voice again. Getting stuff at the drugstore, and then pills to swallow. I still intend to explain how I want no one around me when I'm sick. Have been adamant about this since adolescence, but my body aches too badly, and it doesn't seem to matter enough just then to warrant the effort. I wake up to a dim room, the bedside alarm clock saying 4 o'clock. My muscles ache even worse than before, but at least I'm no longer dizzy. They call that sleeping around the clock, he says, from the doorway. I'm glad you're up. You have to take some more pills. What do you keep giving me? I say. Stuff Fred prescribed. You've got the flu. What are you doing here? I say, and he grins. I live here. I am too weak to banter. Why aren't you at work? I called in, he says. For you, too. You need somebody home from a couple of days. No, I don't, I say. But even in mid-sentence, I know very well that yes, I do need someone with me. And yes, he is right to stay home with me. And yes, I need to be taken care of. I say no more, neither does he. He stayed home the next day and the morning of the next. I was in bed for 5 days, then spent the weekend taking naps and sitting on the living room couch. He bought a bed tray, an elaborate thing, painted white, with legs and a compartment on the side for newspapers, and a shelf part that slants up on hinges like a music stand. He fed me aspirin and antibiotics. He concocted a brew that I drank for 3 days before asking what it was. It turned out to be a third each, apricot juice, grapefruit juice, and rum, heated to just below boiling. I sat, propped against the headboard, in his air-conditioned bedroom, July sizzling outside as if on another continent. Inside, the shades were drawn, his ski sweater over my shoulders. I drank steaming yellow stuff, sleeping well after each 8-ounce mug. Later, soups, then milkshakes he got at the corner, alternating vanilla and strawberry. Finally, our regular meals according to his rotating calendar. By then I was awake for longer periods of time. My head was clear, though my body still felt as if it had been dropped from a great height. He lugged the TV into the bedroom and put the remote control on the pillows next to mine, and a heap of magazines. In the evenings, he sat on the chair next to the bed and told me gossip he had self-consciously amassed by taking one of my colleagues to lunch, then read the paper aloud. He taught me to play poker and let me win. He slept on the living room couch. I had not been nursed this way since having the chicken pox at the age of 8. Today is the last day for me to come up with a present for my mother's birthday, with any hope of getting it to her on time. It is a sweltering Saturday. One would not, however, suspect that it is 90 degrees outside. The air in Saks is chilled to a crisp, swarming, wallowing hordes of customers notwithstanding. We are bent over one of the jewelry counters, fingering lockets and thin gold chains. I have narrowed the choice down to a heart-shaped one, and one that opens to reveal a minute bouquet of hand-painted forget-me-nots, when he whispers, "Steal it." I bolt upright, upsetting the heap of packages that the woman next to me has wedged between the front of the counter and one raised thigh. His back is moving away from me in the throng. My ears burn as if to set my hair afire. I wait for the blood to recede from my face. I watch a vein pulse in my left hand lying on the counter. I lose track of the vein and look at my hand instead. It has closed over the heart-shaped locket. The saleswoman stands 2 feet to my right. 3 customers are talking to her at once. There are circles under her eyes, and the skin around her smile is tight. "It's not fair to steal on a Saturday," says a small voice in my head. Look at her. She's clutching the edge of the counter as if under siege. She's tired. She's especially tired of being polite. She would happily shout at us all, "Give me a break. Get lost. Let me go home." "What a rotten thing to do," says the small voice. "At least you could pick a Tuesday morning, and why you went all these years without pocketing a left-behind dime in a payphone only to start shoplifting at this stage of your life." I pick up the second locket in my right hand and the nearest gold chain and say loudly in the saleswoman's direction, "I'll take these. May I have these, please?" She smiles at me and says, "That one's my favorite, too." I fumble with my charge plate, sign the receipt, snatch at the paper bag. He is leaning against a bus stop sign across 50th Street. He waves to me and simultaneously raps at the window of a cab, just then sliding past him. He waits, holding the back door open, until I have crossed the street and sit in the far seat, gets in, gives his address to the driver, and gloats. Pretty fair timing, if I say so myself, and air-conditioned, too. Only then does he hold out an open palm in my direction. I drop the locket, slippery wet from my fist, onto dry skin. "I bought another one," I say. "I couldn't just leave." He laughs, ruffles my hair with one hand, pulls me toward him with the other. My head comes to rest on his chest. His shirt feels crisp. His skin smells as immaculately of soap as if he'd just had a shower. "That wasn't quite what I had in mind," he says, "but it'll do." And in mock bewilderment, "Are you shaking?" He holds me tightly. He is pleased with me, but so matter-of-fact and at ease that I think he knew all along that I'd do it. He never had a doubt. I turn my head until my face is buried under his arm and close my eyes. It took no time at all, I think, and very little effort, really. A lark. As soon as we get home, he addresses an envelope, wraps the locket and its $39.95 price tag in several layers of toilet paper, and sticks a stamp on the envelope. "Run down to the lobby and mail this. There's a good girl. They should have it back by Tuesday." I stare at him, then at the envelope. He snaps his fingers. "You know what we forgot? Wrapping paper for your mother's locket. Why didn't you have it gift wrapped? I'll go get some at the drugstore, and by the time I'm back, I hope you'll have that silly look off your face. You didn't exactly crack Fort Knox, sweetheart, remember?" A few days later, he shows me the loveliest knife I have ever seen. I am sitting on his lap when he pulls it out of the inside pocket of his suit jacket. Its handle is silver, inlaid in mother-of-pearl. He shows me how to make the blade snap out of its sheath with a frivolous click, how to make the shiny steel disappear again between silver scrollwork. Do you want to try it? The slim handle lies in my palm, cool and precise, and as well known to me as if I had received it years ago as a gift. To herald the age of consent. I hand the lovely object back reluctantly. He slips it open once more, lays the tip of the blade very lightly against the skin of my throat. I bend my neck back some more, back until it will not bend any farther. The steel tip feels harmless, a toothpick. "Don't laugh," he says. "It'll go right through." But I do laugh, and he has known I would, and has long moved the toothpick out of the way by the time I burst out giggling. "I withdrew this knife point in the nick of time," he says. Nick of time, get it? "You make the worst jokes of any man I've ever met," I say, in a guttural voice, my head still arched toward my back. "Don't try to arouse me with tales of your former lovers," he says. "It's so tacky. Only trash does that." That's me, I say, showing my true colors at last. True colors at last, he says. What insufferable arrogance, as if I didn't know what you were the minute I laid eyes on you. Oh, yeah, I say, sitting up. Oh, yeah. I'm at a loss of what to say next, but I need not have worried. He interrupts my fumbling, half-grown, incoherent scraps of thought and says, Next week you'll rob somebody. In an elevator would be easiest. You can dress up in your Bluebeard outfit. Don't tell me about it in advance. Now get off my lap. My legs won't wake up for the 3 days as it is. I know immediately which elevator. I have often picked up a friend of mine for lunch, at her office down 2 blocks from mine. I know that the second floor in her company's building has been vacant for months, its door to the stairwell unlocked. The following day I have an appointment at 3. It is over within half an hour, and I take the subway to his apartment instead of going back to my office. It's a humid day, and the ride back uptown is uncomfortable. How can they stand being dressed like this, I think, in the middle of July? I am sweating in shirt and vest and suit jacket, women in sleeveless dresses looking airy to me and as if in flight. I finger the smooth oblong in my pocket, expecting instructions to flow from it as from a talisman guidebook. I have, on several occasions, exchanged nods with this doorman. That he does not recognize me makes me feel invisible and giddy. I stand before the board listing the names and suite numbers of the companies in the building, glancing sideways at the people to my left. 2 women are waiting in front of the banks of elevators leading to the upper floors, a middle-aged man before those for the lower floors. I walk toward the opening doors of one of the elevators serving floors 1 through 18. 3 men and 1 woman emerge and file past the middle-aged man and me. I step into the elevator after him. He presses 9. I push 2. Even before the doors have closed, the slim silver handle is out of my pocket. The playful click coincides with the onset of our ascent. There's the tip of the switchblade at his throat, which arches backward at an angle familiar to me. I hold out my free hand. A leather wallet, still warm, lies in my palm just as the doors open. I stand outside. We look at each other, somber as in a turn-of-the-century photograph, until the doors slide shut. Neither of us has spoken. I walk 10 steps to the stairwell, down 1 flight, through a gray metal door into the lobby. The doorman is drinking from a styrofoam cup and exchanging jokes with the afternoon mailman. I walk past them and out the revolving door and 2 blocks to the subway and up the subway steps a few miles farther south and 4 blocks to his apartment. There's enough time for me to undress and put my own clothes back on and scrub the glue off my face before he comes home. I'm sitting on the couch, pretending to read the evening paper. He says, "Early, aren't you?" And, "I bought a porterhouse. The damn thing's worth its weight in gold." I do not look up from the print, which blurs before my eyes. A delayed reaction has set in. I need to make a concentrated effort to keep from sobbing, and I'm trying to understand why my thighs ache. My muscles deep inside my vagina are opening up and out. Why I am aroused as if his tongue were goading me toward air that is dangerously thin and piercing. The newspaper slides into my lap without a rustle. He has discovered the wallet on the coffee table. "Ah," he says, and puts down his briefcase. "Open it. Open it. Open it." My body interprets the words as having nothing to do with the wallet. I slip off the couch and kneel before the low table. He sits behind me, rubbing my neck and shoulders. I take out, one by one, a small address book, a checkbook, an American Express card, a Diners Club card, a Master Charge card, a driver's license, a thin, black, refillable pencil, a crumpled scrap of paper with 2 phone numbers scrawled in ballpoint, A florist's card, a mortician's card, a classified ad torn from the Village Voice offering cut-rate carpentry services. A pink receipt from a Third Avenue dry cleaner, and $321. He says. His chin rests on my right shoulder now. His left arm is curled around me. His palm caresses my breasts. His right arm, slipped between my rib cage and my right elbow, stretches before me toward the tabletop, where it lines up the contents of the wallet in an orderly row. Leonard Berger, August 14th, 1917. He reads off the driver's license into my ear. What a clever name they gave him. Our Leo's a Leo, unless he's just a Lynn. But what do you make of the mortician's card? And why the carpenter? Was he pricing coffins? Got discouraged with the seller's market and decided to trust a drummer on dope who's handy with a saw? Or does he just need new kitchen cabinets? He tells me to call the numbers off the rumpled piece of paper, hands me the phone. One is busy and stays busy. There's no answer at the second. This is losing its charm, he says. Call in, Leo. Tell him his wallet's in the trash down the street. Here, I say. You want him to come here? It'll be fun to watch. We don't know his number, I say, my voice unfamiliar to me, my composure in the elevator unfathomable in retrospect. He points to the first page of the address book. Please return to, it says, and then there's his name, an address, and below that, a telephone number. A woman answers. Mr. Berger's wallet is at the corner of, she says, what? In a high-pitched voice, and, who? But he has motioned me to hang up. I give him half an hour, he says, and leaves the room to start my bath. The salad is prepared and the table set when he leads me back to the living room window. We stand next to each other. His hand follows the shape of my buttocks over and over. A little yellow car pulls up to the curb miles below us. A tiny man scrambles out. The toy car zips away while the toy man scurries toward a pretend garbage can. Try this, he says in a low voice into my ear, and when I look at him he grins and hands me his field glasses. A cinemascope face, drawn in gray, looms inches from mine. I recognize the wart on the left cheek. Large beads of sweat glisten on a heavily lined forehead. One earlobe, a gray sprig of hair protruding from the cavity above, looks incongruously as if it had once been pierced. He has hidden the wallet under only one layer of newspaper. What if someone else finds it first? I had asked. Too bad for Leonard, but no one has taken the wallet. There is no need even to forage. Spidery veined giant's hands hover, gingerly lift a vast sports page. A spandex watch band catches the low sun. I put the glasses down. The toy man snatches up a grain of dust, stands immobile, swivels its head, waves a tiny arm at a little model checker, and is gone. A wave of nausea rises from the pit of my stomach. I swallow hard. The sour taste lasts only for a moment. I stretch my arms as far above my head as they will go and find, as my shoulder muscles respond to the pull and the band of muscles across my chest and the stomach muscles below, that a shifting, a sliding has begun in my body while I was still afraid of throwing up. The stir gathers momentum and depth, embracing small rivulets, now plentiful from all sides. He spins me around, his hand still clamps on my shoulders, and shakes me, my head bobbing. His hands close around my throat. I slide to the floor, my eyes shut. I lower my circle of arms joined at the wrists around his neck and entwine my ankles above the middle of his back. Barely worth it, wouldn't you say? He grins down at me over a forkful of steak. A candid camera stunts the lavalier, but his eyes shine as if he had a low-grade fever, and I don't need to wonder whether mine do too. I had never allowed anyone to read my diaries. They had been a fitful business, sometimes carried on intently in lurching subway cars. one hand shielding the page from passengers standing above me, self-conscious sidelong glances at those touching my thighs to the right and left. Equally self-conscious at my desk, between a hurried return from a demonstration with a client and a staff meeting scheduled 15 minutes later, or alone at night, a foot away from a mute and bright 3-inch Kojak running heavily down a windy street. His crook of the evening sliding around a corner, garbage cans silently sent sprawling on sidewalks, or in locked bathrooms, crouched on a cold toilet cover, water left running in the sink so as not to let on to the man on my bed that I was writing. This is getting to be, I used to want, long overdue. Daily entries obsessive for months, then neglected for no clear reason, for half a year except for sporadic sentences. March 8, raining, hair wretched. I had always been wary of people who publish their diaries. It seemed a violation to me to have a true diary read publicly, and a diary written to be read by others. Having lost its purpose, to be one secret place, could at heart be no more than variations on March 8, raining, hair wretched. Some years back I had surprised a lover holding my open diary. Though I knew he could scarcely have read a word, so short a time had I been gone from the room, though I knew he was unhappy at how things stood between us and had maybe hoped for a clue, though I knew that my leaving him over the diary would not be to the point, the incident clearly a pretext even to me, still I thought, that's it, this does it. I said nothing and watched him close the book awkwardly. I left, and for weeks thought of him only in terms of half a sentence, reading my diary, too. Since I had met him, I had written every day, 3 or 4 sentences at first, soon pages and pages. When he picked up the diary one evening out of my open briefcase next to the coffee table and began to leaf through it, a curious mix of sensations rose up my spine. Dismay at first, then relief, enchantment, exultation. How had I been able to bear it? All the times when he hadn't read this notebook, how long had it been? There had been no one to read me. An adolescent's code, a dense scribbling complicated by a smattering of leftover Latin, meant to be indecipherable to anyone but me, and sometimes beyond even me, mere weeks later. All the times of rushing to bureau drawers when the doorbell rang, sliding notebooks under slips and handkerchiefs, all the times of last-minute looks around a room to make sure something I didn't want seen, something I wanted no one to know about, hadn't been left exposed, always to be laden with recesses not to be open to anyone. The grim isolation, the bleakness of privacy. Over, I thought, it's over. He knows me completely. There is nothing to hide, and sat down at the foot of the couch and watched him read. Just called him at work, reassuring to hear the receptionist's voice recite a company name, then croon, "Just a moment, please." Reassuring to hear his secretary answer half a minute later. Reassuring to listen to her say, "Maybe out to lunch. If he is, he didn't tell me. May I take a message?" I need reassurance. Left the office at 10:30. No appointments for the rest of the day. Planning to get caught up on backlog working at home. And now this instead. He calls back. "We're an anachronism," I whisper, reading from the dictionary into the phone in a raspy voice. Nearly every one of the definitions incorporates the word error. It's not normal to wander around a man's apartment on a Monday afternoon, obsessed. 1 cup of syrupy coffee nursed for hours, chain smoking, time slipping away. I'm scared. And why not, I think, even as I whisper into the phone, my bridges burning behind me in bright rows. Signposts of what I've abandoned for him. A comprehensive, if second-hand, grid of a code. How one lives, assembled over decades. Eyes looking ahead, open wide as in a trance. No idea yet what I'm looking at. There's cause for alarm, all right. It would be abnormal to be whistling through my days. The responses are correct. Well-oiled brain, well-scrutinized emotional machinery ticking away in unison, all in gear. New events, not enough information available, are liable to be unsettling. New consequences more unsettling than isolated events. New processes more alarming yet. Anachronism, he repeats after me, and there's a pause, and then he says lightly, so maybe we are, and so who cares? We're fine. Tell me what to do, I say. Maybe you should go back to the office, he says. Do office work at the office, or give it until 3. If you're not working by then, you'll know. He's set my afternoon out for me. It's crisp and clear, divided into segments. So much for that. 30 minutes on that. No more pacing from room to room. I'll do what he says. I'll do what he tells me forever. Too big a word. Better stay away from those. You ought to know better. But what if I found an absolute after all? Always, never, forever, completely. I'll always love him. I'll love him completely. I'll never stop. I'll do what he tells me forever. How stern a theology can you pick? The God of wrath, forever and on, unquenched desire, brimstone paradise? I've turned a believer of sorts after all, turncoat, traitor to what I have arduously taught myself. Don't cast me out, don't ever leave me. Desire unquenchable, as long as he loves me I'm saved. I'm setting the kitchen timer for half an hour. It'll be 3 p.m. Then I'll get immersed in the new account then. A fat folder to be studied. I'll plot my strategy. In the meantime, I'll type. The story a woman told me, how she lived with a man for the year it took her to write her first book. How at 11 p.m. every night he'd turn the TV up and say, "When will you be done with your typing?" She became adept at recognizing the split second when she had to stop, somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., just preceding the moment when he'd start hurling chairs, books, bottles. Typing. Recalling in print, pressing wobbly black buttons. A more or less faithful machine recording a process. What he makes happen. The sleepy slave who, at dawn, sits at her master's feet and recounts in a lullaby voice, a soothing sing-song, what has happened to her that night, as the sky lightens, and before they go to sleep, endlessly weary, limbs afloat. Rapidly, too. 55 WPM? Not that fast. Could I play his secretary? Give up this lovely, absurd job of mine? Be with him around the clock? Beverly, the friendly voice answering his phone. Maybe out to lunch, if he is. Message? From Queens, he explains. They get paid more in Manhattan. How else are you going to get them out of Queens? My brain registering feebly, but of course I say nothing, because my stomach surrenders under the blatant, indolent tone of his voice as he says, "You've got to pay those girls more, of course. How else?" My stomach and thighs responding. Faceless girls out of Queens or wherever, just like me. I'm one of them. But me he loves. Me he allows to bury a face in his armpit. For me he lights a cigarette with carefully squinted eyes, puts it between my lips, my mouth slightly open, waiting for what he'll put into it next. Tongue, a dribble of wine, cock, a thumb, 1 square of bitter chocolate, 2 fingers, 4, half a sautéed mushroom, tongue, cock again. For me, he puts a lit camel between open lips. I make it glow in the dark. Our damp thighs stick together while he says, in a low, lazy voice, "How else are you going to get the Beverleys out of Queens?" 15 more minutes before I have to work. Set up by him as surely as if he knew what I need to do, what she doesn't, not in detail. If you're not getting things done. Sweet, slow cramp of surrender in my stomach, warm syrup thighs. Yesterday, as we finished dinner at this table, a child sings a nonsense ballad from a nearby window. Boisterous, off-key, cheerful. I shout, "Who's the noisy brat?" He laughs. He likes it when I raise my voice. He does it so rarely. The singing child didn't hear me. Anything foreign to or out of keeping with a specified epoch. The epoc's a midsummer in the 70s. The out of keeping is me. By the time the utter predictability of my orgasm sank into my brain, it had, of course, long been familiar to my body. There was no mistaking the power this man had over me. Like a well-made wind-up toy, whenever he set me in motion, I came. Moods of wanting or not wanting to make love were moods I remembered as from a book. It was not a matter of insatiability, but one of inevitability of response. He did what he did, and then I always, inevitably, finally came. Only the preludes varied. I'm hurrying back from the washroom, where I've hastily brushed my hair, washed my hands, put on lip gloss. Walking rapidly around the corner and down the hall toward my office, I hear a colleague answer the nightline. It is 6:15. A 4 o'clock meeting has lasted until a couple of minutes ago. Just as I reach my desk, ready to pick up my briefcase and leave, my phone begins to ring. "For you, love," says a cheerful voice. We've made a good friendship out of a chance bond formed 7 years ago when we both started working here on the same day. There's a click, and the outside line is open. "Let's go. Time to get out of there. The Chelsea. Room. I don't even know where it is," I say. "What's the matter? You just surfaced at Penn Station?" "I've been in the city as long as you have," I say. "I know, sweetheart. Trouble is, you can't ever find your way around in it." "I can, too, find my way around," I say. There's no need for me to know where every sleazy little hotel. I am bent over my desk, hair shadowing my face at either side like horse blinders. I'm holding the receiver in my left hand while the pencil in my right cross-stitches slowly and carefully around Hotel Chelsea, scrawled on the cardboard back of a notepad. The oval wreath consisting of precise, tiny X's completed. I trace the verticals on the H, up and down again, smiling fixedly, his voice skipping on. "Never heard? Stayed there? Every New Yorker, a landmark. Half an hour." The cab driver has never heard of a Hotel Chelsea. He finds it with the help of a tattered collection of pages no longer held together by a cover, sporadically soaked with grease, smudged so thoroughly that I'm impressed by how quickly he deciphers the print. It is not a long ride. The small lobby is cluttered with unmatched furniture, the walls covered with dusty paintings all done, it seems, during the last 2 decades. The only occupant besides me, and a man behind a counter at the far end of the room, is a woman who sits on a vinyl-cushioned black bench placed at right angles to a fireplace. Her deeply grooved face is a mask on a head so small as to appear shrunken. The high heels of her low-cut shoes are dusted with green glitter. Rolled down argoil socks expose white calves, elegantly shaped as those of an adolescent dancer. What looks like a soldier's dog tag hangs suspended on a shoestring against the Knicks t-shirt tucked into the waist of a salt and pepper tweed skirt. She is reading a Spider-Man comic book. Birds of South America, a fat library book, lies on her lap. I regretfully stop myself from staring. The elevator is small, the hallway into which it releases me bleak. I lean cautiously over the ornate, wrought iron banister. Rows after rows of railing plunge below, the shaft bottomless in the dim light. I pull back sharply, annoyed with myself. Of course it's a long way down, I tell myself. It's 12 floors. Though I try to walk lightly, I am unable to keep the heels of my sandals from clicking loudly on the stone floor. When I have found the right room, I take a deep breath, glad to close the door against the silence and the gaping stairwell outside. This time there are no packages heaped on the bed. There is no note. 6 dime store hooks, the size I buy to hang my most lightweight mementos, sit like bugs at irregular intervals on walls that need painting. The squares of white beneath the hooks make the surrounding wall space look even grayer and give the room an air of having recently been evacuated, a place where someone lived, hastily abandoned, no time to pack, cheaply framed family photographs hurriedly snatched off walls. A dead cockroach lies next to the cold water faucet on the back ledge of the bathroom sink, a smaller one near the bathtub drain. I sit down on the orange chenille covering the single bed and cause the mattress to sag abruptly. I lean my briefcase against my calf and do not take the shoulder strap off my right arm, but clutch my handbag under my elbow and hold on to the strap, my left arm crossed diagonally over my chest. The phone finally rings. "Take your clothes off," he says. "There's a scarf in the top drawer. Tie it over your eyes." The large, square, loosely woven white cotton with a narrow border of small pink flowers, a present from 2 of my friends 3 birthdays ago, lies neatly folded in the left front corner of the drawer. I take off my dark blue t-shirt and linen pants, unused to the process of drawing clothes over my body with my own hands. The door opens. He locks it behind him and leans against it, his arms folded. I feel my smile freeze, thaw, fade in rapid succession. He takes the 3 steps to the bed, yanks bedspread and top sheet together out of my hands, off my body, off the bed, slaps me so I fall over sideways, sprawling. I am momentarily disoriented. "Don't cry now," he says. His voice bland. "There'll be plenty later. It was a simple enough thing to ask you to do." "This is a creepy room," I say. "I couldn't stand not being able to see, alone in here." "You can't stand much of anything," he says. "Not a whole lot's likely to happen to you, with me right outside." "I didn't know you were—" "Just do it," he says. "I'm tired of talking." I fold the scarf and tie it clumsily at the back of my head. He sticks a finger between scarf and eyebrow, 2 more fingers, unties the scarf, redoes it himself. I can no longer see the slit of light along its lower edge. There is a rustle of cellophane, a small paper tear, the click of his lighter, a cigarette in my mouth. He curls the fingers of my left hand into the shape required to hold a small ashtray. It feels like glass. When I have smoked 2 cigarettes, I clear my throat, open my mouth, but there is a knock at the door. I hear his footsteps on the wood floor, the lock being opened, low voices. The second one is as deep as his, but different in quality. A woman's? "About time," he says. Then some mumbling. I can't make out. "All right, then. And start now." During the following 10 minutes, I am being dressed again. By a woman, I'm certain now. Her breasts keep brushing against me. They feel soft and large. There is the persistent smell of a perfume I can't identify. Not cloying, though sweet. Not really sultry, though with an unmistakable hint of musk. And there's some verbena, too. She has long nails. She is shorter than I am. She has recently drunk a small amount of whiskey and has rinsed her mouth with La Voris. She has coarse hair, quite a bit of it. Her hair, like her breasts, keeps touching my skin. I try to visualize the clothes she is putting on me. The underpants are small, made of slippery fabric, the border scratchy just above my pubic hair. She puts my feet, then my calves, into boots that zip up the inside. The slant at which they support my arches must mean that they have high heels and thick platform soles. A skirt is slipped over my head, zipped in the back. I move the material between thumb and forefinger. It is cold and slippery, like a plastic-coated slicker. Vinyl. I am wearing a vinyl skirt that ends, my arms hanging by my sides, at the level of my fingertips. A brassiere next. Lean forward, honey, says the smoker's voice in a conspiratorial girl-talk tone. Let's make the best of things here. I bend from the waist while she adjusts my breasts, taking each into the palm of one hand, squeezing toward the middle, pushing the pillows of padding underneath and toward the underarm side of each breast. When she bids me straighten up, I run my fingers over what protrudes above the stiff lace. My breasts touch, something they normally do only under the hands of a man. The thought of my breasts so extravagantly positioned makes me giggle. What's funny now, he says. Look, I say, put yourself in my place. You're in a hotel, blindfolded, and someone you don't know shovels you into a push-up bra that you'd have given your eye teeth for between 12 and 18, except your mother would never let you wear one. You picture that, and then tell me if it wouldn't make you laugh. He says, I see your point. A top of some sort has been pulled over my head in the meantime. It has no sleeves, ends 2 inches above the waist, and begins where my breasts take cover under rigid lace. A vinyl miniskirt, I think, a top with me hanging out all over it, platform boots. I'm wearing a hooker outfit. There is no time to interpret this newly solved puzzle. The scarf is off my eyes. Before me, in the fading northern light, shimmers an enormous, white, blonde Dolly Parton wig over heavily made-up eyes, a glossy, dark brown mouth, and there's a black, see-through top, cut low over large breasts and a black lace bra, a purple vinyl skirt ending above mid-thigh, patent leather boots. My twin. 2 of us in look-alike costumes, contenders in an as-yet mysterious contest. I stare. Neither of the others moves. Only when I sit down on the creaking bed, at last beginning to formulate a question, does he say, do the rest. The rest, taking nearly half an hour, is a wig like hers and a generous application of makeup, pots and tubes and brushes surfacing in turn from a gold lame kit kept in the bowels of a very large handbag. Though she tries, patiently and with perseverance, she does not succeed in gluing false eyelashes to my lids. I'm not used to the procedure and am unable to keep my eyelids from fluttering hysterically. Instead, she covers my lashes with gobs of mascara, letting one layer dry, fussing with iridescent green eyeshadow in the meantime, then applying yet another layer and another. She outlines my lips with a hard, short pencil, digging in roughly, fills the space so bordered with her dark brown lipstick, then covers everything with a slab of Vaseline. A few more pats and stabs at my wig with an outsized rat-tail comb, and she says, pleased with herself, time to check yourself out, honey. Mirror's over there. I look at him. He is sitting in the one armchair, an ankle crossed above the knee, his hands in his pockets. He says nothing. I walk slowly to the bathroom door and its mirror, a narrow diagonal crack marking a right triangle off the top left corner. It is a sight from which one averts one's eyes if in the company of a man, which one looks up and down quickly and surreptitiously if unobserved and by oneself. An 8th Avenue prostitute. Not a charming lady of the night in a Parisian cafe out of Irma la Douce, but a gawky, atrociously painted New York street whore of the 70s, in her cheap wig and come-on 60s gear, as ready to service a John as rob him of his wallet. The woman who shields her face with a large plastic handbag on footage of yet another Vice Squad roundup on the 6 o'clock evening news. I turn back toward the others. Can't even bolt and leave. I think, not like this. 3 people looking at each other in a forlorn little room. Twin hookers and a clean-shaven man at ease in a dark blue pinstripe suit, a crisp pale pink shirt, a dark blue tie with small white dots. You look terrific, honey, says one hooker to another. I'm not paying you to talk, says the man in the armchair pleasantly. Don't you like how she looks? The hooker persists. Isn't this just what you wanted? You didn't do it for kicks, he says, still amiably. And that outfit didn't cost you a third of what you charged me. It's hard matching a costume thread by thread. A little size problem here, too, let me tell you. Everybody's in a chatty mood tonight except me, says the man. Take my clothes off, and take your time tonight. We've got plenty of time. That one can use a few hints from a pro. Come over here, sit down, watch. There's a lot you can learn. I am rooted to the worn spot on the floor before the bathroom. She has begun to undress him. I have never so much as opened a button on his shirt. Casually and efficiently, a mother undressing a small boy for his bath, the child too tired from a day outdoors to do anything but stand quietly, she anxious to get his spattered clothes off and him into the water in pajamas, then and bed. When he is lying on his back, he says, not looking at me, but at the woman standing by his side, "Get your ass over here and into that chair so I won't have to go get you." In a trance, I cross the room and sit down. In a trance, I watch her climb onto the sagging bed. In a trance, I watch her kneel between his legs. I can't keep from trembling, though I press my legs together, my elbows on my knees, knuckles jammed against my upper teeth. Her skirt sticks out stiffly, exposing the black triangle of her underpants and her rear. For some seconds, I can think of nothing but how flawless her skin is, my brain commenting objectively and in polite surprise at how graceful a collection of shapes such large buttocks add up to. The wig, pompous yellow curls now tucked back and puffed up in a heap between her shoulder blades, hovers where his legs meet. There are only sucking noises first. Later he inhales sharply. Then there's a moan. It is a sound I know well. It is a sound I have imagined belongs to me. Based on what, I think, based on what, could be made audible only by my mouth, was worth a prize-winning lottery ticket, a promotion, all my talent and skill. My fists have turned slippery gray with diluted mascara. Her hand is between his legs. Her head moves vertically in long, slow strokes. "That's it," he whispers, and Jesus. There is a scouring pad of yellow steel wool on my fist now. The whole nest gives way under my pull. I fling it behind me, both my hands closing in on her soft, light brown hair, heavily streaked with gray. "What the?" She scrambles up, blurred bodies next, and then he is sitting on the edge of the bed. I am bent over his left thigh, his right leg braced across the back of my knees, his left hand clamped around my wrist, pinned to the small of my back. He pushes the crackling vinyl back, says, "Hand me my belt," slides his fingers between the elastic and my skin, and pulls the scratchy hemmed underpants down to the top of my thighs. I grit my teeth in blind terror and a fury new to me. I will not. He can beat me forever. I will not make a sound. A teacher in 2nd grade saying to a pupil, a sullen boy larger and taller than the rest of us, when he dropped a pencil and often when nothing had happened at all. "Your father should take you across his knees and pull down your pants and give you what for," said in a light voice, ominous as a nightmare in its sweetness. Once a week an uneasy wave of titters set off to lap across a hushed room. 28 7-year-olds bending their heads over their desks with a shame as inexplicable to them as it was pervasive. I haven't thought of this teacher or the proximity of moist swamps she conjured up since being released into the care of gruff Miss Linlay and 3rd grade. And here it is, revived and let loose, vile. More debasing than anything he's done to me in the past. The enforced flesh-on-flesh intimacy far worse than being tied to a bed, than cowering on a floor. Handcuffs and chains, a kindness compared to hanging like this. Buttocks as if served up, blood roaring in my ears. I do, of course, cry out eventually. He stops but does not let me go. A cool palm gently soothes my skin, fingers tracing lines this way and that. A flat hand moves softly down my thighs to where his legs hold them fast, follows the line between the thighs upward from the knees, back down again, another slow ascent. "Give me that Vaseline you had," he says, and hold her hands. My buttocks are being spread. There is the pressure of his finger in my anus, a hand between my legs, one slippery finger sliding easily into place between closed lips. I tense every muscle. I concentrate on yellow spirals whirling against black on the inside of my squeezed shut eyelids. I grind my teeth. I dig my nails into my palms, more frantic now than when he first started hitting me. I can't bear it. Not like this. Please don't let me. My body beginning to move under the slow pressure that urges me to arch against it, soon squirming greedily on his hand. "You think you know what you want, sweetheart," his low voice in my ear, almost a whisper, "but you go by what your cunt wants every time." And a fierce blow. "Shut her up," he says, my mouth covered by a perfumed hand into which I bite as hard as I can. The scarf stuffed between my teeth then and held there firmly by someone breathing heavily to my right, and my mouth free again, his hands fondling me until my body succumbs, much more quickly this time. "Please, I can't stand it. Please make me come." Changing under another blow to a mere "please," my body thrown on the bed, the sobbing under a pillow muffled and distant even to myself. A tongue on me and the pillow off, and his face above me, but the tongue still there, below, quickly making me wail. My head on his shoulder as he stretches full length beside me, his arm around me tightly, his fingers over my mouth. She rides him sitting astride. Across a narrow space, she and I watch each other while he comes. I am sitting in a corner seat on the AA. It's only been 2 months, a little over 9 weeks. I've been out of control for 2 months. A boy sits across from me, curly hair falling over a round forehead, shirt unbuttoned, an open book held rigidly in both hands. I look at him steadily. My body is liquid, afloat. He stares back. Twice he's tried to smile. My hands are folded in my lap, one open palm inside another. I don't smile. I am conscious of my new power, and the boy across the aisle is too. Surely not a new power, ancient probably. I just never knew about it. Abandon. At West 4th Street I get off. The boy cranes his neck, opens his mouth when I look back at him, jumps up in a sudden, awkward rush, but the doors have closed. The kid in the subway felt it, second hand. It must seep from my pores. For the past 2 months, I've been in the process of being taught about myself. Something new every night, the undercurrent getting stronger by the hour. Hands pinned down above my head, shallow gasps. This is new, ticking in my brain. A conscious new power, vulnerability, perverse if only because it is total, natural as grass nonetheless, or asphalt in New York. Abandon. Take me, anything. Do it to me, anything. Take me, anything. Kill me if it pleases you, but try tying me down first. Look at me, my eyes closed, your fingers outlined on my cheek, damp hair lying where gravity makes it land as my head falls back against the pillow. Better yet, talk about striking me first, in a low voice, and handcuff me to the table leg and feed me, crouching low. Make me eat you between a mouthful of baked cod and one of home-fried potatoes. First, slowly, tipping the glass of wine against my lips until the liquid flows onto my tongue, my eyes closed. You have to gauge how far the glass needs to be tipped. I'm not accountable. Wine dribbling down my chin, no one wiping it off first, and God surely knows what next. Thick welts and a stifled scream for the first time. Tracing the welts, watching your cock grow hard again, watching you trace the welts, feeling your cock grow hard again, our eyes locked. Weeks later, stifling is no longer possible. Maybe later yet, a trickle of blood. What would it feel like to be struck so that one bleeds? When you're 4, you can't fathom what it's like to be 5. If you've never screamed out of control, you can't imagine how it feels. Now I know how it feels. It's like coming. There is a sound far away having to do with me and surely not having to do with me. No responsibility. My body giving up, giving in. No bounds. Foreign sounds far away. I'm not accountable. Years of intermittent faking behind me. The power to fake ecstasy, the stingy, pathetic control it provides. Pant, pant, pant. Ah, darling. Dynamite in bed, whispers a man to his best friend as I'm about to enter the living room only a few years ago. I never once came with that man, not in 10 months of tireless gyrations, yet he was happy with my responses. Watching him above me as I panted while he came, his eyes squinted shut, red face far above me. I'm in control. No more. This one has taken me on, taken me in, taken me over. He can have it all. How welcome he is to me. Beyond All Limits is the title of a porn flick on Broadway in 44th. Beyond All Limits. What a lovely sound. He's promised we'll see it. We'll go to lots of movies, he says, once we ride this out, this phase we're in. He's right. One needs to ride out a phase such as this one. Visions too blurred, dangerously drunk driving on steep, narrow, winding roads, using them as if the New York State Thruway, going 110, oblivious to drunkenness and speed limits. He's moving me, edging me, step by careful step. Nothing drunken about it. There goes one limit, another one, limits falling by the wayside. I'm afloat. After 3 days, I've gone beyond my limits. For 2 months now, I've been out of control. Long ago, I've lost count of how often I've come, how often I've said, please don't, please, don't. I beg every night, lovingly, to beg. Please what, he says, in a low voice, and makes me come again, my voice far away, not my voice at all. I plead every night, ugly rasping from my throat, my stomach liquid, warm syrup thighs, out of control. Listen, Holy Virgin Mary, I'm like you now. There's no need for my control. He's doing it all. He'll do it until he kills me. Can't, won't kill me, though. We're both too selfish for that. So many ways to edge on further, a lifetime full. Thick welts and a stifled scream for the first time. I've been with him only 9 weeks, and we've long moved beyond stifled screams. The things people do before they need to be killed must be legion. A trickle of blood for the first time, legion. And the reminder, if you do kill me, you'll have to find someone else. And is it easy to find women like me? That night, a trickle of blood stained his sheets. He ran a finger through it, tasted it, then smeared the last drops across my mouth and watched the blood dry on my lips while stroking the sweat-wet hair above my forehead. You really do crave this, he said. You're as obsessed with it as I am. Sometimes during the day I get the most persistent hard-on, imagining how far we'll go. He slowly rubbed at the crusty flakes around my mouth with his thumb. Other times I'm frightened, he laughed. Hey, there's some pie left over from dinner. Let's eat it and go to bed. It's 2 o'clock. You're impossible in the morning when you don't get enough sleep. Next day, after breakfast and while brushing my teeth, I began to cry. He called, Ready? And, Let's go, sweetheart. It's 20 of. A few minutes later, he came into the bathroom and set his briefcase down on the toilet seat. He took the toothbrush out of my hand and dried my face and said, You have a meeting at 9:30, remember? And, What on earth is the matter? He kissed me on both cheeks, looped my handbag over my shoulder, picked up his briefcase, and took my hand. He locked the apartment door while I cried, and we walked to the subway while I cried, and at one point he said, "Do you have your sunglasses with you?" He took them from the outside pocket of my handbag himself and stuck them onto my nose, fumbling with one of the sidebars, unable to find my right ear. When we got off the subway, I was still crying. I cried up the first set of stairs and then up the second set. Within a few yards of the exit turnstiles, he threw up his hands and pivoted me toward the other side of the platform, and downstairs again, and into the subway, and up the elevator, and into the living room, where he half pushed me onto the sofa and shouted, "Will you please talk to me?" And, "What the hell is going on?" I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was I couldn't stop crying. When I was still crying at 6 o'clock, he took me to a hospital. I was given sedation, and after a while the crying stopped. The next day I began a period of treatment that lasted some months. I never saw him again. When my skin had gone back to its even tone, I slept with another man and discovered, my hands lying awkwardly on the sheet at either side of me, that I had forgotten what to do with them. I'm responsible and an adult again, full time. What remains is that my sensation thermostat has been thrown out of whack. It's been years, and sometimes I wonder whether my body will ever again register above lukewarm.